This week on ETTO's Sidequest, we talk about the first game we played that truly sucked. Hello everyone and welcome back to ETTO's Sidequest episode number 2. We've come back, Josh, for a second one.
We made it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we did.
First one's gone out, it's out to the wild. We talked about Viewfinder, and let me just say, vastly unsuccessful compared to our Hyrulean Hijinks podcast so far, but that's okay. That's okay.
A little unsurprising.
Yeah, it's Viewfinder, you know.
The biggest game versus a small indie game.
Yeah. Look, it's to be expected, but we're ramping up. We'll get there. We'll get back to the lofty heights we hit with Hyrulean Hijinks of about 150 views. On one of the later episodes, I found out one of our later episodes got a bunch more views than the first one even, so I don't know why that was. Was it the one about Glorbos? Glorbos? No, that's a different thing we're about to talk about.
That's a different thing, yeah.
Gibdos, the Gerudo one we did. That was the one that got a lot of views.
Yeah, right.
So,
random.
I don't know why. So random. But what isn't random is what we're talking about today, which is the first bad video game we played, or the first game we realized was bad, something along those lines. The topic, exact wording of the topic is up in the air, but you know, we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to it. But in order to get there, we've got to get through some other stuff first. Namely, we've got to talk about some news. We've got to talk about some games we played. So Josh, should we just jump straight into the news?
Let's jump into it, man.
It's news. It's news time. Great sting. It was a great sting. Once again, we are hearing all these stings. And we hope you like the musician sting. We hope he's listening. In fact, he might be listening.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sting if he's listening, but only if he's listening.
He's a great actor.
Yeah. He's a musician,
Fantastic
right?
actor.
And an actor. Yeah.
He was on, Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah, and he was on Friends before that, I think.
He wasn't great. He was probably like one of Phoebe's boyfriends at some stage, like everyone seems to have been at some point.
Yeah.
Like Paul Rudd.
Yeah. But anyway, news, Josh.
Yes.
My news is kind of a follow-on from last week's news. And I don't really have a specific article to read from or anything for this one. Last time I talked about the character Glorbo in World of Warcraft. That was something that the World of Warcraft Reddit had created to play a prank on AI that was kind of like scraping the internet to make fake articles.
Yes, you did.
About all this stuff. And I was like, this is very funny. Good on them for trolling the AI generated things. It's great. Let me tell you, and this is just from my personal experience. A lot of people cottoned onto this, particularly within the Destiny community, which obviously I am quite present in. I play a lot of Destiny, follow a lot of Destiny content creators. And it's because they've just kept on going with it. The Destiny community was like, oh, we're going to do this as well. We're going to try and get them to create an article based on Glorbo in Destiny. And then they did it. They made one of these articles, one of these websites create an article, and it was fine. And they've just like super doubled down on it. You got content creators like making videos on how to get the Glorbo boss and stuff. And then you've got like the official Destiny accounts also talking, like replying to these things, being like, Glorbo's the best boss to fight. And it's just not funny anymore.
Right.
It's
fair.
They took the thing that one community had done and were like, that's really funny. Let's just hammer it into the ground. And it wasn't even like they created their own funny thing, like a separate character to kind of troll these AI with. They're like, no, we're just going to do the Glorbo thing again. And let me just tell you, I'm sick of it. And it's especially the epitome of the Destiny community right now is all they're doing is complaining about there not being a lot to do in Destiny or just making random stuff like this. And I'm just like, just play some other games. Just do something else for a bit. There's so many good games out this year. But anyway, it's more of a rant, to be honest, than anything. It wasn't really a news piece, but I was just letting everyone know that Glorbo is still going and I'm upset about it. So
it is weird. It's the one thing out of that I think is cool is that like the official Destiny like socials
Yeah.
are jumping on it too. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty cool thing. But I totally get, like, it's just stolen content.
Yeah.
It's like stealing a comedian's joke.
Totally.
And then claiming it as your own.
It's like, I know when they were doing it, like they added in some little bits of like Destiny language into the whole algorithm so that the AI would kind of like add those bits in. But yeah, they did. I would have loved it if they'd created their own version of it and just like created a different boss with different bits and pieces. But yeah. It was just Glorbo again, and it is what it is. But anyway, that's the Glorbo update. I'm hoping next time I have a new piece of news. But for now,
nice.
Josh, what are you talking about?
There hasn't been much news lately, like much super great news to discuss. I've found on this and on ETTO's catch up.
We're also recording this a week earlier than we normally would, because we've got to get this done early because Josh is going to be busy. So we've only had a week to accumulate more news. But
and this is basically going out. Well, sorry, this is recorded 2 weeks before it'll go out.
Yes.
Essentially, or a week and a half at least.
Yeah.
Sorry if this is old news. But Ben, you might remember on Facebook, on our group chat with you and Will and I.
Yeah.
I sent you guys a funny screenshot of a game that looked like just a total copy of The Last of Us, but from the Nintendo eShop.
Yes. I'm familiar with this.
Yes. It's gone.
Oh.
It's vanished. Trailers are not even on YouTube anymore.
Yeah.
That's how gone this game is.
Yeah.
So the game was called The Last Hope.
Yeah.
Instead of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Basically had a very Ellie-looking female companion character to your other man character that actually kind of looked like the main character of GTA 4 to me, or at least in one screenshot that I was looking this afternoon. So this was a Switch exclusive budget game, and it's been removed from the Nintendo eShop. The trailers have also been removed from YouTube due to a copyright claim from Sony Interactive Entertainment.
Right, yes.
So they've jumped on this as well.
Yes.
Not happy about it. No one currently, though, knows why it's been removed from the Nintendo eShop. There's been no public statement about it. We don't know whether Sony put out like a cease and desist.
You would assume
and got the game removed.
You would assume that's what it was, but
potentially, yeah. Maybe Nintendo has removed it due to this, or whether the devs have just removed it out of like caution.
Well, yeah. I mean, they would have seen it coming. It's pretty clear what this is. It's an attempt to cash in on something. I wonder, was there a game? Yes. Was this an actual game? Like, was there gameplay of this?
Yeah. So it.
Again, I probably won't be able to find any because it's all been removed.
Unless I'm wondering if like there was. I assume there's some gameplay videos where people have played through it. And these gameplay videos, I assume, are not very long because the Kotaku article that I was reading said the game is about 15 to 20 minutes long total.
Yeah, wow.
Apparently it was also buggy as heck.
Yep.
And there seemed to be some time travel elements to it based on the...
Yep.
Based on the trailer I saw. I think it was literally just like you're in a hellscape.
Yep.
Like... So you start off like the world has already fallen.
Yeah.
And you travel back in time to try and fix it before that point.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I have found some.
There you go.
This is for audio listeners. Basically, it's just the most generic looking city world with some zombies shambling around. Yeah, crazy. It's crazy that The Nintendo eShop in particular, I feel like that's the place where this has happened, which is super fascinating to me because Nintendo were the people who were always like super tailored in what got on their platform and stuff. And then in the Switch era, they've just let it go free, and this is the kind of stuff that has come out of it. That's
absolutely.
crazy.
I'm wondering whether this is going to be like the thing that kicks Nintendo up the butt and tells them that they should do some more checking over their games and some what do you call it when you
Quality control?
quality control, yeah, stuff like that. Like just really play the game, make sure that it's fine. Like, you know, the Epic Game Store does not let crap games on it
Totally.
ever. Like it's so catered, it's so controlled.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Nintendo needs to be doing that again.
It's pretty crazy. It's
It's terrible. Yeah.
I'm fascinated in if this is a kick in the butt at all. I don't think it will be. I think it's just the Nintendo eShop's going to continue to be a wild place where wild stuff gets posted. But
it's true. Apparently, there was a game. There was an article. Part of the article that I was reading referred to this happening on Xbox recently as well. And it was with God of War. Someone had like a really crappy God of War model. Yeah, the title for the game was God of Warning, which looked very strange. The whole game was like super limited animations. You know, like 2 or 3 character models, including Kratos. It just looked terrible. And the fact that that snuck through as well is insane.
Yeah, totally.
Ridiculous.
Totally. Alrighty, well, that's all the news for this week. As we said, a bit of a loose news week. Not a lot to talk about, but we do have some games to talk about, so that'll make up for that. Josh has been playing a few games. It says I've been playing no games. I have been playing games. They're just not interesting ones to talk about.
Sure.
But in order to talk about the games, we got to get into the games segment, currently called Games. You've taken ideas for names for this. If anyone wants to give us a suggestion in the Discord, we'll take it. But at the moment,
Help us out.
It's Games.
Games.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-da. I don't remember what that sting sounds like, but I remember it's a good one. Alrighty. Well, as I said, nothing from me. I've just been playing Marvel Snap and Dave the Diver, which I'm sure I will talk about Dave the Diver again at some point, like we talked about last time. And Marvel Snap.
Yeah, cool.
I will probably talk about Snap at some point in one of these when I feel like there's something big and relevant to talk about. There's nothing super interesting going on in it at the moment. I'm just playing it a lot.
Fair. Cool.
But Josh, you've been dipping your toes into a few different games. Would you like to talk about those?
I've been mucking around with some stuff. After finishing Viewfinder last week, I've sort of been trying to work out what to play next with probably the limited time I will have, that I do have in the next week and definitely in the next month leading up to my wedding. So I jumped into Game Pass just to see. You'd recommended a couple of shorter, like 4 to 5 hour experiences.
Sure had.
And then there was some other ones that that had, you know, captured my eye.
Yep.
So the first one I'll talk about briefly is Potion Craft.
Yes.
You played a bit of this, haven't you?
I have played a bit of this.
I feel like I remember you talking about it when it was coming out and you were super keen.
It came out of Game Pass a while ago, and I think it was over the summer when I didn't really have a lot else to play. I was kind of dipping into this a bit, and just like, it's a very chill game to play, I found.
It is. So, I enjoyed, for the most part, what I did play of this, but after playing probably an hour to an hour and a half, I just kind of felt like I got it. Yep. And I didn't need
That's fair.
Anymore.
That's very fair. For me, I think I played a bit more than that. I probably played a few hours, and it was kind of... Because the interesting thing is you do start making more complex potions and having to like mix different ingredients, and like it becomes a bit of an RPG and like the way you're building out your shop. But there is it does very much hit a point where I'm like, I'm just going to be making a lot of potions and keeping on making a lot of potions. And then eventually I'll make more potions. And it's kind of, you're totally right in that you kind of just find what the game is pretty quickly. So if you're enjoying that kind of chill vibe, I'm sure you can get a lot out of it. But Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Yeah. I think I felt like I got it, and I thought it did what it was aiming to do very, very well.
Yeah,
It's a
totally.
very well-made game, very polished, quite realized.
Yeah.
The UI is
Gorgeous.
complex, but as soon as you click on anything,
Yeah.
you know exactly what it does.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of buttons in the video that you're showing right now for video watches. The top right, there's a lot of like stuff happening up there. There's a lot of things on the left side as well when you're making things. So there's just a lot happening, but it's quite simple. Like if you just click on it, it's like, oh, of course, that's what that symbol
Very
means.
pleasant to look at and nice to listen to. Those are the reasons I was
Yes.
playing it a bunch. Was just like the presentation of it, I think, if anything, carried it. Imagine if this game wasn't presented in like the storybook way that it is presented. It would be a lot less interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think I played this around the time I played Pentiment as well, which again, very similar kind of art style.
Oh, yeah.
So I was very much into this old timey look for a while there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, it was cool. I was, there was one point, I think towards the end, the end of my time playing it,
Yeah.
I was trying to make something a little more complex and trying to create something a little like, I was trying to make it to another, like you, as you mix the different pieces of the recipe, it moves you on a sort of map, around the map. And as you move around this map, it basically leads you through some like hazards in the map, that could, destroy the potion.
Yep.
Or make the potion fail, or you could come across some new like skill points and some new attributes for that potion to get.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find those on this map, and after adding probably 15 to 20 ingredients into this potion, I still wasn't finding any new attributes to land on, which gave that potion nothing. Like you can't finish the potion unless you land on an attribute.
Yeah, totally.
And that I found that kind of frustrating. Because
I
like
think
it told you early on exactly what to add to make certain potions, and then you can kind of come up with basic ideas for basic other potions, and then once you move further and further out of the map, I just got lost, and I had no direction and where to go.
That was around the point where I stopped as well. I was like, because it gives you progress in like chapters, and I think the early chapters it's very clear, like, oh, make a potion of fire, and it's kind of clear which direction you need to go into that, and then very quickly it gets into like complex potions with stronger effects and all these kind of things, and I'm like, this is I'm lost on exactly how to do this, and also like how long this is going to take me, because as you said, I was doing that thing where I was like searching around the whole map and stuff. But
and I think I did I'll quickly check again, but I did check the potion craft how long to beat. It's 20 hours.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. 20 hours of doing this. I just couldn't imagine myself doing it.
Yeah.
So at that point, when I definitely realized that I wasn't going to get anywhere quickly towards the end of the game, I'm like, I'm done with this. So I dropped out of that.
Totally. Very fair.
And then I jumped into the Big Con, which is, I believe, a game from last year.
Yep.
I think. So I loved the look of this when I first saw it. It just reminded me of old 90s cartoons. The way that the characters' hair and skin color does not resemble any sort of human hair or skin color is very, very 90s, and made me think of Doug, specifically, the TV show Doug.
Yep.
Where like Patty Mayonnaise and the villain both, I think, are green. Stuff like that. So it just gave me those vibes. A lot of 90s kind of references, and your main character lives and works, and your mum owns a video store. And so you're just obsessed with videos and watching videos with your mum, and schlocky horror movies and things like that. And it was just delightful. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
The idea is that those big guys right at the front of the video just then, there's some big sort of gangster looking dudes.
Yep.
They are essentially kind of like a, mafia type group, like a protection. The basic idea is they're like, pay us money to keep your store running.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'll take over.
Yeah.
And they say you owe somewhere around like $97,000, or your mum owes them that. But you've been unaware of this situation that your mum's gotten the company into until that point. So you end up going on this big adventure where you're traveling across America or across wherever you live with someone who is wanting to do like one big con to get like a big chunk of money.
Yep.
And that's this guy. If you're watching the video, it's this guy in the blue jacket.
Yeah.
So you go around with him. He teaches you different ways to pickpocket or con people, like asking a cashier to break $100 bill.
Yep.
And as they're doing that, you distract them by telling jokes and things, and they lose track of where they were. So they end up breaking $100 bill for $190 instead. So then you just get more cash out of them that way. Things like that. And you meet a bunch of characters that turn up in every sort of city that you end up in across the way, and they're all sort of a fun cast of colorful characters, literally colorful.
Very colorful. I'm loving. I'm just like enjoying looking at this.
It's really cool. I recommend. It's only like 4 or 5 hours as well. So it's pretty quick to get through.
I know Potion Craft's on Game Pass. This is also on Game Pass.
This is also on Game Pass. The 3 games that I'm talking about today are on Game Pass. And it was just really fun. Very simple. Not very difficult either. There's some challenges sometimes to it, but there's not sort of huge repercussions
nice.
For failing, things like that. And there's some just funny random jokes to it all.
Totally.
So it's cool, it's good.
Awesome.
Highly recommend. I don't want to talk too much more about it if anyone wants to play it, so I don't spoil it.
No, very fair.
But there's a fun little twist towards the end.
I'll definitely check this out. So, I've been peeking around Game Pass for a few more things to kind of look into while there's a little dry period for games. So I'll definitely have a look at that. And you got one more game.
Is Planet of Lana. This was recommended by Ben. And I haven't finished it yet. I feel like I'm maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours in. I think. But this is absolutely gorgeous, man. Visually, like the backgrounds, the character design, even the monster design, things like that.
I was a little bit worried yesterday. You were like, I have 3 games, and you've played some of them, and one of them I didn't like that much, and I was worried it was going to be this one when you gave me the list of games. So I'm glad you like it.
You didn't like this?
No, I did. It was you had said to me one of your games yesterday you didn't like as much as me, which I think was Potion Craft now. I think was what you were talking about.
Yes, it was. Yeah, definitely. No, this has been awesome so far.
Totally.
Just absolutely delightful. Like, I don't know how you could not like this game.
It's just gorgeous.
It is. It's just the, no dialogue. Everything is done through, well, there's kind of dialogue, but it's in a language that doesn't exist, I assume. Except for your sister just saying Lana every now and again. Sometimes for real, sometimes I think in your memories. But it's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, looking at it again, it's been a couple of days since I've been able to jump in on it, but
I've described this to people as a Ghibli film meets a Star Wars kind of Star Wars Visions, especially little story. And like the music is a gorgeous mix of both. Yeah, the background's entirely hand painted. And yeah,
With the gameplay of like an inside or a
totally, and
something like that.
yeah, 100% that. The animation itself is like, so yeah, there's the hand painted backgrounds, and then there's the character animation, which I felt was also equally as standout as that, because there's all these little like small animations that the character will do when she's jumping, or like all those, I don't know. And her little friend who you come across called Mui, who's a little like companion friend. They just all have these delightful little animations that just add so much like joy and flavor to it all. And like,
absolutely, yeah. I love like, I'm shocked at how sort of like autonomous that character is, Mui.
Yeah, totally.
Like just his little characters, the way he runs after you, sometimes stays, or like he just, there's so much character in him.
Yeah.
There are some things that he does that I'm like, I didn't even tell you to do that. Like, you didn't need to.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's
Totally.
little bits to that character of him, like sniffing around, or watching you walk past him, or having a look around.
Some level of command over him, but the amount of stuff that he will do when you just tell him to follow you, I think is really impressive.
Yeah. And like his little jumps, when you tell him to like jump on something.
Yeah.
If it's particularly high, then he goes and sets himself up, looks up, and does like a little bit of like a tail wag.
Yeah,
like
totally.
He's psyching himself up to do like a big jump.
Yeah.
It's very, very cute. Your character like often looks around, like looks at. I think he's kind of doing it now.
Loosely
like
doing it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, like looks up, down, looks at particular landmarks and things happening. It's so well made, so polished. It's animations are just beautiful.
Super polished. I didn't feel like I really came across anything that I felt like was buggy in it. And you're seeing a little bit of it on screen now if you're watching the video, but there's the main mechanic of these games are these little puzzles with the machines against machines that have taken over your world. And I was surprised at how much I enjoyed most of these puzzles. Because initially I was like, Lana feels very weighty in her movement, and I was like kind of worried that these would start to grate on me because of like the timing of having to move Lana and all that thing. But I feel like the way they are made is so, more often than not, when you're like moving through these puzzles and doing like little stealth sections, you have just enough time to get to the next place, so it makes it feel like there's a level of tension, but they've really planned it out super well so that you're not actually in that much danger. And yeah, just like, even as I said, the character, she's a child, so she feels like she's not an expert at climbing all these things that she's climbing up onto, so it feels like she's like struggling a little bit, but they never got frustrating for me. It just kind of like added to like the sense that I was this character, which I really liked.
Yeah, definitely. She's a little like uneasy on her feet sometimes. Or like some of her jumps, like she does sort of, some flailing, and when she lands, she sometimes rolls, like does a proper like parkour roll out.
Yeah, totally. And there's a level, I think, and not necessarily in the animations themselves, but you definitely, I'm fascinated to maybe hear your thoughts on it at the end once you finish it all. There's definitely a feeling of her increasing in like competency and confidence by the end of the game. Which I really love. Again, not necessarily in like visually how she moves, but just in the sense of the kind of thing she's doing. I think, which is really impressive, because it genuinely feels like a coming of age story, even though there's like no dialogue or any of that. Like, it's so impressive how much of a story they end up telling without any real narration or dialogue or anything. Just like sound, music, visuals, that kind of thing. Yeah, I love this game so much.
Absolutely. And the little drip feed of mechanics as well.
Totally.
Like, just simply interacting with things and learning how like different machines that these aliens have dropped into the world interact with each other, and then coming across Mui, and learning that you can, control him a little bit, tell him, order him to go places or stop or things like that. And then at the point that we're seeing in the video, we're about to learn that we can tell him to cut ropes, chomp on a rope and drop things.
Yep, totally.
Stuff like that. I just got to a point where you have a gem and you can use the gem to get Mui to interact with some weird alien things around the world as well, and he can can sort of control these weird sort of, I don't know, they're kind of creatures but kind of not. I don't know what they are. They're
the weird black goop.
Kind of semi-sentient. Stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to explain what that is exactly, but I think I'm super excited you've been playing this and enjoying this. I think I finished this game. This was another one I played on stream, like Bramble, because it's a 4-ish hour game, so it only took me 2 or 3 streams. And as soon as I finished this, I think I messaged you and Will being like, both of you have to play this. This is a Josh game. This is also a Will game. And then I also messaged our friend Matt, who we've been playing Diablo with on our streams, and because he's very into a lot of the same things we're into, and I was like, and especially into music, and the music in this game we've talked about, fantastic. And I was like, you just have to play this game. I think, if you're into those kind of indie platformers in the sense of Inside, Limbo, those kind of ones, it's actually more wholesome than those ones, I'd say. It has its intense moments, but if you're actually wanting one of those games that is not as intense as those, this is a perfect one for you.
Absolutely.
And it'll leave...
Not as, visceral or disturbing.
And you'll leave it feeling like there's genuinely a joy having finished it, being like, wow, I experienced what is genuine, to be cliche, genuinely a piece of art. I think this is... In every sense of the word, music, visuals, gameplay, it just all marries together. The gameplay is probably the least unique thing about it, but that doesn't make it bad by any means. Again, I was super impressed with how much I actually enjoyed the puzzles in the end. It never really felt like I was trying to get through a puzzle to get to the next bit. It was kind of every time I got to one, I was like, oh, cool, a little thing. So I'm not just walking along,
Yeah. And none of them are too tricky, but they still make you feel kind of smart when you
totally
when you figure out the
100%.
Thing. I'm getting a little frustrated watching this video sometimes because this person is taking so long on some puzzles or just not quite getting it, and I'm like, man,
totally. Totally. And there are definitely, I know everyone has their own moments when they go through these games where I remember Matt was messaging me. I was like, this puzzle's so hard. And I was like, oh, this wasn't that hard. It's how you do it. And I think everyone has those ones that they come across that are like, I don't understand how to get past this. But
one of the ones that I found most frustrating, which I eventually got after just walking around a little more, was one where you have to, there's a bunch of pipes and they have weird covers on them. And each cover has something unique about it. And it's exactly where you need to place each of those covers along one of these pipes. Is this is the one. There it is. That's the one.
It's like a music-based puzzle as well.
Yeah. And it's painted somewhere around the on the rocks around the place. Finding some of these, I think I was here. I'd already done the light one in the top corner. And that was the only one I had.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that I'd missed some back, so I had to walk back and find some things.
If it makes you feel any better, this also took me a bit of time. This is the challenging one, but this is probably one of the more complex puzzles in the game, and I think I would say I still enjoyed it by the end, especially because it's kind of, you're making a little musical thing by the end of it. The way they tie in music in kind of diegetic ways into the soundtrack as well as the overall game, I think is super good. By the end of the game, when you're getting orchestral pieces playing behind you, they've incorporated in bits of little like tunes that you have played throughout the game in various puzzles, and I think
Yeah, cool.
super impressive. I'm worried this is one of those games that people are kind of going to like skip over, see on Game Pass, and be like, oh, this is another one of those indie platforming games. And I really like, I just hope enough people give it a go, because it's like, this very clearly to me is like a labor of love. And it's that tricky age we're in now, where there's been a lot of these style of indie games, so convincing someone to play another one of them is almost a little challenging, because they're like, oh, I've done this before, and it's like, no, this is its own thing.
Yeah. So please, this is Ben and my plead.
Yeah.
With everybody listening, go play Planet of Lana. It's so good, you will not regret it.
Yeah, you can do it in a night. If you have a night free and you can set aside a few hours for it, you can play through it in a night. It's on Game Pass, and you will not be disappointed, I promise you. You may get a little bit frustrated, but you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
This is where you get the gem for the first time as well.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right as I switched away from the footage.
There it is. But that is
Amazing.
games. That's all I've played.
Yeah. You've played quite a lot for a week, considering we only did
they're all small things.
Yeah,
and like, realistically, the big con was only a few hours. I only played a couple of hours of potion craft.
Yeah.
And maybe halfway-ish or a little bit less into Planet of Lana. So I was just looking for some short experiences to get through and catch up on some stuff.
Totally. No, by all means, you picked some good stuff, and I will check out Big Con, and I've already played the other two, so I only need to check out one game now. Isn't that great? Nice. Well, yeah, hopefully I'll have some more games myself next time. But that is the games, as you said. And now we're going to jump into our main topic for today, which is, Josh, would you like to say it?
Yeah. As we said at the start of the pod, games, when we first realized that sometimes games can actually suck. The first time we played one of those.
Yep. I'm going to have worked out some weird, like, how to have actually written that. Because, again, I swear every time I've written this topic, I've phrased it differently. And when I have to put out the little sting for the title, I don't know what I will have written. So we'll find out. If you're watching this on video, you'll know. But we don't know at this point. This was a fun little adventure down memory lane, I would say, for me. Because when we talked about doing this topic for the first time, you mentioned that you had a game immediately in mind. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. This was a challenge for me. I was like, just more so in just remembering what games I played as a kid. But also, the thing that I was getting stuck on was most of the games I played early on in my gaming history, which, again, will show my age. A lot of it was like Nintendo DS and Wii stuff. Was like not... Most of it was sports games. And I didn't really want to come here and be like, this sports game and this sports game were particularly bad, because I played some bad sports games. Honorable mentions go out to Wii Cricket was one of them. There was a cricket game that came out on Wii.
Wii Cricket?
Yeah, and it sounds great, right? Because you've got the bat. I had
no idea that was a thing.
You've got the remote, you got the bat. Wasn't as good as it sounded. I did get a bat attachment for the Wii remote. You know how you could get all those weird attachments? There was a bat one. I got it. Not a great game. Just hit it. It's very easy to hit a lot of runs. Not very difficult.
Sure. Yeah.
Similarly, there was an AFL Wii game that came out. Laughably easy. And then on DS, there was a soccer game that I owned that wasn't a FIFA. It was like a rip-off FIFA called Real Football. And that was...
I bet it was.
I very quickly worked out that there was a trick you could get that meant you could score from kickoff, basically like every time you kicked off the ball.
Wow. Okay.
So, I didn't have much to play in that game after that. So that was like a lot of my early gaming was those kind of games. And I was like, I don't really want to talk about any of them. Like, technically, they're all... I'm not sure which one of them came first, which one I realized bad. Probably the DS soccer game. But I was like, no, there's definitely something else in there. I just had to think for a little bit. So I'm gonna go with my game first, and then we'll get into yours.
Yeah. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, my game is the Nintendo DS Cars movie tie-in game.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there's some footage that's going to be on the screen for all of this for people who are watching on video. If you're watching on a podcast, you can head over to our YouTube channel and catch that. But this was basically a collection of mini games, somewhat related to the movie Cars, but also somewhat not. Kind of largely based around the characters within Radiator Springs, and various stories from the movie Cars by Pixar. And I was realizing as I was going through the footage of this game today that I had played a lot more than I remembered. Because to me, I remembered the first main mini game you play, which is you are controlling. There's a bit early in the movie Cars where Lightning McQueen falls out of his trailer and gets jumped by some hot rod cars. And the main first mini game you played was you were in control of one of these hot rods, kind of speeding down the freeway, dodging in between cars. And that was the only mini game I could remember in my head, and I was like, that was a bad time. So I was like, okay, this is the game. It's definitely the game. And then as I watched this footage today, I was scrolling through all the different mini games and realized, oh no, I played a lot of this game. I thought I had gotten in my head, I'd gotten so frustrated with this one mini game that I had not played any more of it. But it turns out
this is going for a long time.
Well, so this is just one mini game, and it's just going down
nothing happening.
Just going down a road. All the controls were touch based because that was the DS. You had the touch screen at the bottom.
Sure.
So you were just tapping lanes to kind of swap between in this particular mini game. And yeah, as I was scrolling through all these mini games, I was like, oh, I remember every one of these. And I was
right.
I genuinely wonder how much of this game I have played. To its credit, probably does a better job of giving time to all the different characters in Cars than the movie does. The next mini game we've got here is one where you go to Flo's V8 Cafe, and you're kind of refilling the petrol of all the cars as you go along, and it gets really stressful because then eventually a lot of cars start coming into the petrol, and you have to quickly switch between them all, and they start getting angry at you. And then there's 3 different videos. There was a lot of mini games. Again, didn't realize this one is literally just matching 3 of a traffic light. Because in the movie Cars, you've got those 2 characters who look at that traffic light for 2 seconds. So they were like, we're going to make a mini game out of that.
That's so funny.
And then basically, I think there's collections of 4 or 5 mini games. And at the end of every one of those collections, you play a piston cup, which is obviously the big racing cup from the movie Cars. And you think, oh, that sounds fun. You're doing a racing game all of a sudden. I was looking at this gameplay and I was trying to remember how this actually controlled, and I can't really remember, but what I do know was that it wasn't good, and it was probably touch based, and it's just, I remember it's basically, they say it's a piston cup where you're racing all these cars. You're just racing Chick Hicks, the one other, the bad guy car from the movie.
Sure.
And you're just kind of driving forward but not that far forward, and then bumping into him and not bumping into him. Really kind of weird thing. Oh, and then I didn't even see this earlier, but then there was a pit stop mini game. The pit stop mini game I actually enjoyed. I remember enjoying this. That was the best part of all the races, because your tires would start to wear, and so you had to do a pit stop. But yeah, look, I'm not gonna lie. I clearly I got some enjoyment out of this as a 7-8-year-old. I'd say it was probably around when this came. I don't remember when this came out. But looking back at it, I was looking back at all these mini games, and I was like, I would not call this a good game. I'm not sure there is a world in which you could classify this as good.
Sure.
Even if I enjoyed it quite a lot. There's one here where bits are falling out the back of the Lightning McQueen's trailer, and you kind of just have to drag them into different corners of the touchscreen. And,
yeah, right. Okay.
Just really varying levels of quality. There was a fishing game with Mater. Again, this one you kind of doing circles on the touchscreen, all just different touchscreen related mini games. And I've said about all there is to this game. Just a lot of touchscreen minigames.
Yeah, I am impressed with how much more this is using, like, it's combining the two screens into one.
That is true. That is true. It did that quite well.
Yeah, so often, like, the top would be the main game and the bottom would be, like, a menu.
Yep.
Or, like, a map or something. But this is sort of expanding it to be, yeah, like almost a mobile phone aspect ratio, like, portrait aspect ratio of, like, the full game.
Yeah.
But then some of the ones in the races where you were, like, going from the bottom screen to the top, I can imagine that would be super freaking weird.
No, it was not good. It was not good at all.
Slightly off. The screens were distanced apart, not like this. Where they are completely, like, on top of each other.
Totally.
So that would have been pretty weird.
I think I do look at some of these later mini games in the game, and I'm like, I don't remember them as well. So I do think I must have hit a point where I was always getting to, like, the second piston cup and then not getting through any further mini games.
Sure.
But there is one mini game I do remember, which was, I think, the one. There's a scene in Cars where you honk at all the cow tractors.
Tiffin tractors.
Yeah, and it's on screen right now. I think that was my favorite. That's once I started looking through them, I was like, oh, there was a tractor one, wasn't there? And then I went through them and found that. So yeah, and then eventually, if you can see on the top screen here, there's the angry weed cutting guy, and I think if you honked too close to him, he came after you or something. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my choice. I hope if you're listening to this on audio, I hope it made the explanation was somewhat useful as to what that game was. It's just a collection of mini games based around cars. Were a lot of movie tie-in games, I feel like, back in the day.
Totally. Yeah. Especially the handheld ones.
Totally. I would say a bad game. Definitely a bad game. But as you said, I'm impressed at the ability they had to use both the screens. I'll give them that. So yeah, that's a little peek into my gaming history.
Nice.
Yeah. Josh, would you like to talk about your game?
I will. Just before we do, can we go back to the two screens?
The two screens, yes.
Yep. Just
the
very
racing
briefly
ones?
before I jump into mine. Oh, no. Sorry, just us. The two.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the
video
two screens.
Of just us.
Yes, of course.
So, while we've been doing this, I remembered two others that I could talk about.
Yep.
Very briefly, it's a much newer experience, and I have talked about it before, but Skatebird was also a very, very bad game.
Yep.
That was one that I was really looking forward to, and it was quite disappointing. That was, it's a Tony Hawk.
That was disappointing.
It looked like it was going to be real good.
Yeah.
And it was not, unfortunately.
The reason we can say it doesn't qualify is because it wasn't the first game for either of us. I'm pretty sure we played some bad games before that.
And then when you brought up this one, I remembered one earlier than the one I'm actually going to talk about today, unfortunately. So there was a game on Game Boy, original Game Boy, that I got, which was Thunderbirds.
Yeah. So that's
Thunderbirds tie-in game as well.
That's the thing I've started to uncover. We've got a lot of community submissions for this one, which I'm very happy about because there's some good stuff. The thing I've started to uncover is that a lot of people have that one movie tie-in game that they thought was awesome, and looking back on it, wasn't that awesome.
Absolutely.
Because movie tie-ins were huge, and movie tie-ins are like not really a thing at all anymore. That used to be like a massive moneymaker, I feel. But that's back when we would actually get like the 3 out of 10 rated games, which I feel like you just don't really get anymore. That's how we get them, because it'd be a random Pixar movie tie-in game.
Totally. Yeah. And the real crappy like 3 out of 10s are like the bad indie games that no one's put effort into, like The Last Hope on Nintendo Switch.
Don't insult The Last Hope, Josh. How dare you?
The Thunderbirds Game Boy game, I remember getting it. I remember playing it a lot. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I couldn't get past the second or third level. Like little mini game. It was so hard. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I had friends that tried. They also couldn't do it. And then I sold it at a school fete where my mum was running one of the stalls, and I sold it and I made like $15. I kind of now want to go back maybe on a stream and try and play it and see if I can get past it.
Yeah, totally.
Now that I'm older, potentially more skilled, see whether it was just primary school age Josh sucked at video games.
Yeah. That was a thing for me where I was like, I wonder if there's a way I can play this cards game, because I know for a fact I've still got it at my parents' place.
Nice.
And I was like, maybe I can bring this up for a stream one day. But I also just don't think it would be that interesting, because I was looking through all these and I was like, nah, it would get boring very quickly. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you had your own movie / TV tie-in experience as well.
Definitely, yeah. But the one that I'm actually going to talk about, which is the first one that comes to mind when I think of games that I played that sucked.
Yeah, totally.
Was Prototype.
Yeah.
That game, man, I hated this. I thought I would enjoy it. I think I enjoyed it for a little bit when I first started playing it.
Yeah.
So I watched some videos today to try and remind myself of this, because I haven't played this. I think I thought that this was much further, like, much longer ago than I thought it was.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So I thought that this was like, mid 2000s, but this was 2009. So I was 18 at the time.
Well, I mean, technically this topic is like the game we remember. It was like the game that clicked in our head as the one that was bad. So it's fine.
Pretty much.
Even if it's not exactly the first.
Yeah. This stands out strongly to me. I feel like I played a lot of good games, or at least games that I gave a pass.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds was probably the first game I ever sold, because I couldn't get past it, so I got rid of it. But this one, man, like, weirdly, okay, in doing research on this and rewatching some videos, the 3 videos I watched came out in the last 3 months.
Yeah, I was trying to find
really
footage of this
weird.
game as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and the ones that I watched were people like discussing this game. It wasn't just gameplay. It was like people discussing this game and the series, because there was a sequel to it, and discussing what happened to the company behind it and all this stuff. And I'm like, this all came out in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird that people are discussing this now.
I also feel like I've heard people talk very fondly about this game, but
They really were.
I was watching this gameplay and I was like, this looks dull as
Yeah.
This looks like your peak PS3, Xbox 360 era game that is
Pretty
just
much.
grey, army stuff, weird superpowers. It looks like budget Infamous.
Well,
and I'm sure some people will be very insulted by me saying this, but that's what I'm saying, just based on.
Basically, if you played Xbox, then you were probably a Prototype person, and if you had a PlayStation, then you were probably an Infamous person, because these games came out around the same time.
Yep.
They were announced around the same time.
Yep.
And people that loved this, according to the internet, really, really freaking loved this game.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently, the sequels to this and Infamous came out around the same time, at least a year apart.
Yep.
As well.
Yep.
But yeah, so this was released by Radical Games.
Yeah.
Who also did some actually good games like Simpsons Hit and Run. Simpsons.
Oh wow.
Simpsons. What's the Crazy Taxi one?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Both Simpsons games.
Yeah. I'm sure so you'll know what we're talking about, even though we can't work it out right now.
Yeah, people are yelling at them, yelling at the things, but those are both games that I strongly played. And also I think Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, which was a much more colorful version of this game, essentially.
Yeah.
So in this game, you play as a scientist, Alex Mercer, who wakes up in a lab, surprisingly, with no memory of what happened to him. and how he got there.
Yep.
So odd. Imagine.
Never
he
heard
has
that premise
crazy
before.
Weird, exactly. He has some crazy weird powers. Basically, if you're not watching the video, imagine like venom powers.
He's just got venom powers. That's all this
pretty
is.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some of this game was actually written by comic book writers.
Interesting.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that was Infamous as well. Very inspired by that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Yep. Yeah. So it's basically just Venom without the symbiote talking to you the whole time.
Yeah.
So you could grow like weird bladed hands, which were very like visceral. It's such a gory game, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
You had like a super jump. You could run up walls and stuff, kind of Spider-Man style.
Yeah.
Which was cool.
You could
and
imitate
you
other people? Is that
You
is that what
can,
I'm
yeah.
saying?
So you can fly or glide as well by spraying like what basically looks like blood out of your hands.
Yep.
It's very
Yep.
strange. And
So it's,
you could
so it's
consume
Carnage
people.
then.
But yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could consume people and
Yeah.
then turn into them. So you could imitate them.
Interesting.
After you
Okay.
consume them. I think maybe consuming people also gets health back. You can gain health from that,
Yeah.
but it takes time. So while you're doing that, you can get damaged.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, it was just like you said. It was classic 2000s, like muted, drab colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing.
Drab,
Nothing too
drab,
interesting.
drab is the word for it. Because, like, okay, and clearly there's people who like this, so maybe the gameplay, like, felt good for them. I can't say looking at this is bringing me any joy. Josh is shaking his head. The gameplay brought no joy for Josh. But I'm trying to work
not
out.
to me.
I'm trying to work out why this, but like some people like this. That's probably why. But I can't say like the setting or anything. Any of that is doing.
I think it was the gore
Yeah.
that people probably jumped on, and
That's
I
true.
thought that's why I wanted this as well. I was like, oh yeah, like that's pretty,
Yeah.
like bloody, gory,
Edgy.
cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the box art and stuff
Yeah.
for this as well kind of looked like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Because it was like a hooded guy looking
Yeah.
sideways with like a bloody hand blade thing that he has like holding up close to his face.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like the Assassin's Creed things where it's
Yeah.
like a sideways thing with a hood
Yeah.
and
Totally.
the
Totally.
hidden blade like out, that sort of thing. It basically looked like
Yeah.
a copy of that.
I vaguely remember seeing this box art. I was way too young
Yes.
for it, but I vaguely remember.
Yeah,
it.
fair.
Yeah.
Fair, yep. But yeah, I was like, yeah, this is going to be cool. And I think I did enjoy it early on, but there was some really, I felt like some of the, at least the boss battles or maybe just some of the general mechanics. Again, I played
Yeah.
this, like nearly 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
Were just clunky as heck.
Yeah.
Some of the boss battles, like, yeah, just I felt were unfair. I felt like I think I got like hit around a lot, very unfairly.
Yeah.
There was some points where you had to like fly helicopters and drive tanks, and I think they would get blown up
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah.
Way quicker than you would expect a tank to.
Ooh.
And
Sorry, I
just
should
stuff like
react.
that. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it feels gory, but like it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a Doom where it's like it's got stylized. It's just like it feels gory for the sake of gory. I don't know.
It kind of is, yeah. It's really weird. So Ben
Yeah.
was just reacting to your character slamming another human's head into the ground, and then your body just consuming them in
Yeah.
a whole bunch of tendrils and
Yeah.
blood.
I to be clear, I'm not your kind of like prude who's like against gore at all. Like I actually like there's a lot of gory stuff I'm quite into. It's just, I'm just looking at this and like this. It's probably also to do with the era and stuff and the fact that this is a separate conversation to have. But I feel like we as games have moved on a lot from this kind of game. There was a lot of this kind of game in like the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era in particular.
Yeah.
But I feel like definitely a game like this comes out now. It's weirdly reminding me of Avengers, and like we know what people think of Avengers. Like obviously not in like the gore and all that, but like it's
the
just got
bland.
that the kind of like bland feeling about it that just doesn't really fly as much in this day and age.
And just a little clunky to it as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that would have been mine.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was pretty.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's a an interesting one because there's definitely people that really love that game, but I know
As I found out,
yeah,
whilst on the internet.
totally. I know for a fact the members of our community also had games that they really did not enjoy, that some of which are very beloved. So we're going to run through some of them now before we wrap up the podcast. Starting off, the first response we got was from
So
BMac.
funny.
BMac, very quickly
Thank you,
after I
BMac.
put this prompt in the Discord, said, I put the prompt in being like, what's the first game you remember playing that was bad? And BMac replied, Commander Keen. It came
Absolute
on
shock. Absolute. My heart torn out of my chest when I read that.
Yeah. It came on floppy disks that came in the mail. It was the first game that took me to a different world, and discovering you could translate the languages of Mobit, me and my siblings will never forget. And I read this and I was like, because I was still in the channel at this point in time, I was like, that's weird. I don't feel like there's anything negative you said there. And very quickly, other people caught on Twitter, replied, and were like, are you insulting Commander Keen? And BMac very quickly realized what he had done and was like, okay, added a little edit that said, okay, so maybe I didn't read the prompt as well as I should have.
Yeah. I assume he read it as like, what's the first game you remember?
Yeah, totally. Missed the bad game bit. But then BMac did come in with an actual game that he didn't like later on, which this one I am actually offended by.
Sure.
So BMac said, Spore, bad might not be the right word for it, but more disappointing. This was the first game that I followed through development for years, and what we got at the end was a pale comparison to what was first mentioned. And my actual answer, now I read things properly. So my thing, this is a personal thing, and it's probably a different topic that we can talk about at some point. The first game we remember loving, or like getting really deep into. So yeah, I didn't. In my really early years of childhood, I didn't play a lot of games. I didn't own consoles and stuff. So yeah, it was like kind of mid to late 2000s was like my early era for playing and following games. And my mum got Spore on a disc for her Mac, because we also only had Mac computers. So it was limited in what kind of games we could play. And yeah, my mum got Spore. And she and I would play this game so much together. We would just sit in her office, play through Spore, make weird little creatures, raise them up through the different eras. I don't know how much you know about Spore, Josh.
I think I played a bit. My sister was pretty into it at the time.
Yeah.
She loved it. I think I did jump in and out of it, but I honestly don't remember much of it. But I know that it was a little bit like procedural, the way that you could like customize your character and give them like certain abilities that would make them look different.
Totally. And I think there's a few reasons why this game is not super well looked back upon. I think it was one of those games that kind of promised a lot and then didn't deliver all the things, a bit like No Man's Sky. I've
been listening to old episodes of Filthy Casuals, because I'm kind of running out of podcasts to listen to at this stage. And so I've gone back and I'm listening to early ones, and today they mentioned Spore. As it's so early on that at this point in the podcast, No Man's Sky hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, right.
And they literally, one of them was like, I'm a little worried about No Man's Sky because it feels like Spore.
Yeah, and it was also Maxis right after it was like their first game in a while after the early SimCity games, which everyone loved. And the other big thing with it that I remember was that it was one of the early games that had a DRM was a big debate back in the day, digital rights management for games, where you have to log in to be able to access the game. And Spore was one of the first games that had that as a thing. Nowadays, you have Steam and all these different launchers where you need to be logged in to access it. DRM is commonplace, but back in the day, it was a big no-no, and Spore was kind of like the forefront of that whole debate. And there are definitely problems with Spore. I think I do want to do a stream of that, because you can access it through EA Play on Game Pass now, and I want to go back and play through that. But I totally get what BMac's saying. For me, as a young gamer, I was like super into it. You kind of went through all the evolutionary stages. But yeah, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, we'll go back and forth. Bedazzle jumped in, said, "Oh man, great! Oh my god, great topic. American Chopper on the original Xbox for me. I think my Nana got it for us for one of our birthdays, and good god, it was bad, and we didn't know WF to do."
Yeah, amazing.
WF? WTF. We didn't know what the F to do.
Yeah, amazing. American
Awesome.
Chopper
that does
is...
sound...
Yeah.
That was a TV show, I believe. Wasn't
it sounds like another tie-in game, so it doesn't surprise me.
Totally. I'd imagine it would be like a Pimp My Ride.
Yeah, that totally. It sounds bad. American Chopper in itself sounds bad.
Yeah.
All right, Dolphin Pants. This is the one that made me laugh. Disclaimer: not actually a bad game. I was just a dumb kid. But when I was a child, I hated Splinter Cell because I didn't understand what I was supposed to do. Like, nothing seemed to make any sense to me, so I made my mum take it back to the shops and get me another game.
I loved Splinter Cell. I think I played that multiple times when I first got it.
Yeah.
But I can understand. It is a complex game, and I know a lot of you are much younger than I am. So,
speaking of...
that would have been a tricky one to jump in.
Speaking of getting parents to go back and return a game, kind of similar, but my mum got me Pokemon Diamond for the DS.
You returned Pokemon Diamond, Ben?
I may have traded it in at a later date because I got to a point and I did not know what to do. So I stopped playing and never played it again. I think I got to like the underground bit and I couldn't progress further. I was not a gamer back then, Josh. Nowadays, I look at that in shock. But I didn't think it was bad though. I just didn't really understand it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Lucarius, he said this is an interesting one because for me it was Mischief Makers, which by all accounts was a perfectly good game in the Nintendo 64 platformer era. But it was the first game I played where I had very clear negative experience / sentiment until I came back to it years later. The Nintendo 64 was my proper first gaming console, and playing Mario, Banjo, Star Fox, Donkey Kong, etc., I discovered a joy for video games, like so many of us. But man, Mischief Makers was the one where I just remember finding it so difficult and struggling with it, and thinking it was a bad game, quotation marks, bad game. But as Argon loves to say...
shaking my head, skill issue. I say this a lot. Yeah.
Honorary mention to Mystical Ninja 2 was another Nintendo 64 game I was just garbage at. But it was silly and fun as heck.
The theme I'm getting a lot from this is being young gamers and not understanding what games are. Which is good.
Pretty much. That's why I want to jump back to Thunderbirds and see whether I just was bad.
Totally. The next one is from Lawcat, and I like this one as well. Wii Sports. I could never hit things or bowl properly, and I was sure I was doing it right. Turned out my Wii remote was dodgy, so I was vindicated.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating. But man, Wii Sports was amazing. I played way too much of that for how little game there was in that game.
I love Wii Sports, and I think the reason behind this makes a lot of sense. But I don't think Lawcat would be so upset at Wii Sports nowadays.
No. Yeah. I want to get the Switch Sports.
Yeah.
I want to get it. I want to try it just to kind of relive some of that.
Yeah.
Violet Wind, Biomutant. A lot of people, I think, were disappointed with this one.
Yeah.
Violet Wind said, I was so excited for the premise of this game, an open world to save with a cool creature to upgrade, but it was disappointing with over-narrated dialogue and a battle system that could have done with a bit more refining.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard quite a few bad things about Biomutant.
First trailer for that game, I remember looking sick, and then it just was not.
Yeah. It sort of, to me, it felt like Spore. Like it felt like it was the way that the character would mutate over time depending on various things, kind of reminded me of Spore. I don't know if there was a comparison at the time with Spore as well.
Yep. Milk Please, the Spider-Man 1 movie tie-in game. There's a theme.
I loved these.
Yeah. Well, Spider-Man 2 famously was great. But I think the original one. Milk Please says, this sucker right here was the first bad game I remember playing and going, oh, this sucks. My parents had just gotten an off-white little Windows machine that honestly could barely run this game in the first place. But I remember the installation wizard so clearly. I'm waiting for both discs to install, only to be stuck in the tutorial for hours because I was a small child who wanted to play as Spider-Man, but didn't have the brain formed enough to understand what the game was telling me. Yep. Once again.
Again. Yep. Yep. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Love it. That's so funny.
Alrighty, next one.
Oh my goodness, Dion, this is amazing. The platform that you've said this game is on is fantastic. All right, Batman Returns on the Atari Lynx.
Yeah.
I remember so hard. I could really get past the first level, and when you died, you had to start from the very beginning. Add to the pain of the Lynx. I remember this because a friend had it. The Lynx running on 6 AA batteries, which would run out so fast because it was an LCD screen in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Played the hell out of it, and it was a cool game, but too hard for this munchkin. Yes, I remember that. My friend had an Atari Lynx, and I remember, you could only run it by having the 6 AAA batteries, or having I think you could plug it directly into a power source, like directly into the wall. So we used to sit against the wall next to a power point. We used to play it, he didn't have many games because I feel like there weren't many games on the Atari Lynx. But yeah, man,
I didn't even know this was a console, so that says it all.
Yeah,
that's how little I know about.
It attempted to be like a competitor to the Game Boy, but the Game Boy just had more and better games, even though they were visually much simpler.
I see. Makes a lot of sense. Alrighty. Dump Days, Star Wars on the NES. I'm not sure if it was a bad game, but as a kid with my brand new Nintendo Entertainment System, I didn't know there could be games I wouldn't like. The games my parents bought me were awesome, and each game we rented from our local corner store was fun, until we rented the Star Wars game. There was this Tatooine hub world you had to drive your land speeder around, but I could never figure it out, and when I did find a level, it was extremely clunky and difficult, and I died quickly. 7-year-old Dump Days hated it.
Fair enough. Well, it did sound like at the time, NES games were just pumped out as terrible.
Absolutely.
Like that whole era of gaming was like just some of the worst crap.
Yep, totally. I love the spread of different consoles as well we've had in this. Has been fantastic.
It's cool. Yeah. I'm going to read the next two just because Joshy's one is very short. Joshy says 95% of sports games and racing games.
Yep.
Fair enough.
I'd say this as a sports game lover. I agree.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And then we have our very own Wilbur. The Lost World Jurassic Park for PS1. I'm sure it was great, but my pre-owned copy came with just the back of the tray, no cover or even a holder for the disc. When I put it in, the console started screaming and effing died. Bad game, killed my console. That's incredible. Yeah. It's not even like anything to do with the game itself.
Yeah.
It's just that it destroyed his PlayStation.
That's so funny. I love that.
That's wild.
Alrighty, Laughing Steel. Probably the Astro Boy movie tie-in game for DS. As a young kid, I found it incredibly difficult and frustrating. And the game stuck with the old design of carrying across your health between levels, and even if you died, it would respawn you from the last checkpoint, including whatever amount of health you had. Oh, I hated that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I only ever got maybe 2 or 3 levels into it before 9 to 10-ish-year-old me gave up and went back to Club Penguin.
Good idea.
I get it. I had a similar... But I actually like this game, and again, we might cover this in a different podcast. I had this with the Incredibles movie tie-in game. There was a Game Boy Advance game, but you could put them into the original DSs. So I had that. Cool. And I couldn't get past the first few levels, but I loved it. So it's not on this list. But anyway,
sure,
I get that experience.
Interesting.
Alrighty, we've got one more.
We got one more from Jade. It took me ages to think of a game, but I have one. Jordan vs. Bird. One-on-one. Jordan vs. Bird 1-on-1 for the Game Boy. A sporty cousin got it for a non-sporty sibling of mine for their birthday. I remember that the box came with no instructions and the game was baffling to us. We gave it a solid try. It was our only Game Boy game. But in the end, we just stopped playing it and gave up on that platform altogether. That's devastating because there were so many good Game Boy games.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure someone who understands basketball or at least grasps the game's controls would have a much better time with it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It makes me so sad that you gave up on the Game Boy because of that.
That is tragic, but I get it.
So much good stuff.
I get it. I assume Michael Jordan. I don't know Bird. I'm not enough of a basketball expert to know who that other person was. Man.
Yeah.
What a fantastic topic, Josh. I love this topic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed going through everybody's just then.
Yeah,
Hearing
totally.
some of what people had to say, especially
Yep.
BMAC's misreading of it initially. That was,
I think we'll do another one where we'll actually talk about like
Very
early
funny.
games we liked. I think that's totally a thing we should do.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. We haven't talked about what to do for the next one.
We haven't.
So I'm going to insert this in later once Josh and I have talked about it. I'll do a little insert here so you guys will all know what it is when this comes out. This is your quick little Bendendum. You know, one of those. Yes, for our next episode of ETTO Sidequest, we are going to be doing a review similar to what we did for Viewfinder on the indie game Stray Gods that's just been released by Melbourne-based studio Summerfall Studios. The musical RPG role-playing game with just an insane cast of people. We're very excited to play through it, and we want to hear from you, just like, again, a little mini review, and potentially also what kind of morality you choose to go down. There's 3 main branches of morality, and we're curious what everyone kind of chose, or if it was a mix of all of them. So yeah, let us know in the Discord for next episode. End of Bendum. That's been inserted. We're done. We're done,
Sounds
Josh.
great. I'm keen.
Yeah, I'm Commander Keen. It might not be It's probably not Commander Keen
It's
related,
probably not Commander Keen.
but that was a callback to BMAC.
Unless there's a shadow drop of a new Commander Keen game in the next 2 weeks.
Man, you'd be so excited. So would BMAC.
I would be. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, if you want to be a member of that community that's given us all that feedback, contribute to this segment of the show, just be an all-around awesome person and join our Patreon, you can head to patreon.com/each to their own, jump into our Discord, have chats with us. And if you're listening to this on podcast services, we've also got a YouTube and a Twitch. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we've also got a Twitch and podcast services. You can get all those links at etto.card with 2 Rs.co, and you'll find all the things. But until next time, Josh, what's our tagline for the end of this? Do you remember it from last time?
Quest completed.
Yeah.
We did it.